Okay, you've definitely seen them. They're just everywhere now, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
In gyms, people's homes, physio clinics. Those foam rollers.
Brightly colored cylinders, yeah.
Exactly. And maybe you've used one, roll over a tight muscle and felt that, that intense pressure.
Can be pretty intense.
But what's actually happening, like physically happening under your skin when you roll, is it really releasing something?
Or is it just, a popular accessory, good marketing?
Right. That's what we're getting into today. We're doing a deep dive, looking closely at one specific source.
Okay.
It's an evidence-based article from Physio Hub, and it's titled, "What Does a Foam Roller Really Do?"
A very direct title.
Very direct. And our mission here is to sort of pull out the key insights from this article. What does the science they present actually say?
About the real effects, the benefits.
The benefits, the downsides maybe, and crucially, how the experts they cite recommend using it for, the best results.
Sounds good. Cutting through the noise.
Exactly. Get ready to get informed.
Yeah, it's amazing how common they've become. And this article, it points out that, techniques applying pressure to muscles, fascia, that's not new. Therapists have done that for ages.
Right, manual therapy.
Exactly. But people are busy, maybe short on time, or they prefer to work on themselves. So the self-myofascial release SMR, using rollers, sticks, balls, it's just exploded.
And the foam roller is kind of the poster child for that.
It really is. And that popularity, the article notes, is partly fueled by studies suggesting benefits. Things like less muscle soreness after exercise.
Yeah.
Better range of motion, maybe even improved performance sometimes. They mention researchers like Cheatham, Skinner, who've looked into this stuff.
But okay, here's where it gets interesting almost immediately in the article. They flag some concerns right away.
Oh.
Yeah, like some studies apparently show a potential decrease in things like maximum strength or performance in repetitive tasks.
So not always a benefit then?
It seems not. The article kind of positions the roller, potentially, as more powerful as a warm-up tool rather than purely for recovery, which, might be the opposite of how lots of people think about it.
That's a really important distinction. We should definitely dig into that more.
Yeah. But first, the article tries to answer the how. How does foam rolling actually work?
The mechanisms involved.
Right. And they're clear up front. The exact ways aren't fully understood yet, which is important.
Always good to know the limits of the science.
Totally. But they suggest it's probably a combination of things: mechanical, neurological, physiological, and even psychological factors.
Okay, let's break those down. Mechanical. Like you're just squishing the tissue? Is that the idea?
Pretty much, yeah. The physical pressure itself, it might help reduce adhesions, sticky spots between tissue layers.
Okay.
Change tissue stiffness, maybe make it less dense temporarily. And it could trigger something called thixotropic responses.
Thixotropic, like ketchup. It gets runnier when you shake it.
Kind of like that, yeah. Think of gels or substances that become less viscous, more pliable, when you apply force or movement.
So that might be happening in our muscles and fascia when we roll.
That's the theory, leading to less tightness, maybe better elasticity, at least for a bit.
Okay, so direct physical effect. What about neurological?
Well, applying that pressure can apparently affect the sensitivity of pain receptors, nociceptors, and also mechanoreceptors, which sense movement and pressure.
So it could change the signals going to your brain.
Exactly. Which might lead to a pain-reducing effect, an analgesic effect.
Interesting. And physiological.
The main idea there, according to the article, is increased blood flow. The rolling action basically pushes blood through the area being worked on.
Okay, bringing nutrients in, maybe flushing waste out.
That seems to be the thinking. And then there's the psychological part you mentioned.
Yeah, the article brings that up too, and it's pretty fascinating.
Also,
they suggest it could involve a few things. Maybe increased endorphins, those natural pain relievers, maybe a calming effect on the autonomic nervous system.
Shifting towards that rest and digest state.
Right, parasympathetic activity. And importantly, the placebo effect.
The power of belief.
Exactly. All these psychological factors could contribute to why someone feels better or looser or more mobile after rolling, beyond just the direct physical changes.
So part of the benefit might just be thinking it's going to help.
The article suggests it's likely a contributing factor, yeah, working alongside the other mechanisms. It's complex how it all interacts.
Okay, so that's the how. Let's look at the benefits the article says are supported by some evidence. Range of motion, ROM, seems like a big one.
It does. They cite several studies, including Cheatham and Skinner again, that found statistically significant short-term increases in ROM.
Short-term is key there.
Very key, in areas like hips, knees, ankles, and it seems most effective when used as part of a warm-up.
How long are we talking?
Relatively short durations, like 30 seconds to maybe a minute on a muscle group, repeated a few times. Not super long rolling sessions before activity.
And interestingly, those studies looking at ROM didn't generally see a decrease in muscle performance right after the rolling.
Right, even though people sometimes felt more fatigued from the effort of rolling itself.
So you might feel a bit tired from rolling, but in that specific warm-up context, it didn't necessarily hurt your immediate performance capacity.
That's a useful nuance. And the article also adds that combining foam rolling with stretching might be even better for improving that range of motion.
Okay, makes sense. What about flexibility, like actual changes in muscle length, not just joint movement?
The source mentions a study involving long-distance runners. They used self-myofascial release techniques and apparently saw increases in the length of certain muscles.
So, some evidence it can help lengthen muscles over time.
It suggests it might, yeah. Particularly useful for athletes, maybe like runners, who need that length and mobility.
Okay, now the one everyone talks about, recovery. Muscle soreness after exercise. What's the verdict from this article?
Yeah, this is where the picture gets a bit more mixed, according to the source.
Not as clear-cut.
Seems not. They
Yeah.
do mention some studies, like one by Cheatham again, that noted a reduction in that post-exercise muscle soreness, suggesting, a positive effect.
Okay, so some support there.
And Skinner's group also found it could be effective in reducing markers of exercise-induced muscle damage.
There's a but coming, I feel.
There is. They contrast that with other findings. For instance, they mention a study by Wivelhel and colleagues who looked at the effects and described them as minor and ineligible.
Minor and ineligible, so basically not significant.
Pretty much. It just highlights that the research isn't all pointing the same way when it comes to recovery benefits. It seems less certain than the effects on range of motion or flexibility used as a warm-up tool.
Okay, so we've got proposed mechanisms, some clearer benefits like ROM and flexibility pre-exercise, but a kind of blurry picture on post-exercise recovery. What about potential downsides or limitations mentioned?
Right. This brings us back to that really surprising point we touched on earlier. The timing seems critical.
When you actually roll.
Exactly. The article specifically points to a study by Montero et al. Their conclusion was that using a foam roller between sets during a workout.
Like during your rest period.
Yeah. Doing that actually led to a decrease in maximum repetitive muscle performance.
Wait, really? So rolling between, say, sets of squats could actually make you weaker for the next set?
That's what this cited study suggests, yeah. Especially if it's prolonged rolling, they mentioned 120 seconds, so 2 minutes or more between sets.
Wow.
It could impair your ability to produce continuous force, hurting your performance right then and there, which kind of flies in the face of thinking you might roll mid-workout to loosen up and lift better.
That is really crucial information for anyone using a roller at the gym.
Wow, definitely. And what about limitations in the research itself? The article mentions those too, right?
It does, yeah. Several important ones that help explain why we don't have all the definitive answers just yet.
Like what?
Well, for one, there's no single agreed-upon way to foam roll. No standard protocol.
So different studies might be having people roll for different amounts of time or with different pressure or frequency.
Exactly. How long, how hard, how many passes over an area, it varies, which makes comparing results across studies really difficult.
Makes sense. What else?
Also, studies often use a real mix of people. Elite athletes in one, sedentary folks in another.
Which could obviously lead to different results.
Right. Adds variability. Plus, different studies measure different things using different tools and techniques. It just complicates the overall picture.
And they mentioned the need for longer-term research too, I think.
Absolutely. The source points out we still lack really solid data on the long-term effectiveness of foam rolling.
And any potential downsides over time?
Yeah, or its impact on bigger things like preventing injuries or helping with chronic pain management. More research needed there.
Okay. So, given all that, the potential benefits, the risks, the unknowns, what's the takeaway from this article? How should we use a foam roller based on their evidence?
The article gets pretty specific here, drawing on expert recommendations from Physio Hub. The best times seem to be pre-exercise and post-exercise.
Okay. Before and after.
Yes. And they give pretty strong advice to avoid using it during those rest periods between sets.
Right, that finding about reduced performance.
Exactly. So before a workout, how should you use it?
The recommendation is short bouts, maybe 3 to 5 passes over a muscle group, lasting about 30 seconds to a minute per muscle.
Quick hits, basically.
Yeah, consistent with that evidence showing improved ROM and flexibility when used as part of a warm-up.
And after the workout, for recovery.
Post-exercise, the suggestion is you can use it for a bit longer, maybe 5 to 10 minutes total body. This is where those potential, though maybe less certain, benefits for reducing soreness and aiding recovery through blood flow might come in. It can also just be part of a cool down, helping you relax.
And how often should people be rolling?
Frequency seems to depend on your activity level. The source suggests for someone training a lot, like an athlete, daily use might be beneficial.
Okay.
For more casual exercisers, maybe 3 to 5 times a week could be enough. The key is tailoring it, matching it to your training load and what you're trying to achieve.
And let's just really hammer home that key warning.
Definitely. Avoid using it during your rest periods between sets in a workout.
If you want to maximize your strengths or performance in that workout, step away from the roller between sets. Save it for before or after.
That seems to be a major takeaway from this particular source.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. Everything we've unpacked from this Physio Hub article.
Well, it seems foam rolling does show promise. It offers some benefits, particularly for enhancing that short-term range of motion and maybe flexibility, especially when used before exercise.
That's a warm-up tool.
Right. And the proposed how involves that mix of things, mechanical changes, blood flow, affecting pain signals, and interestingly, those psychological factors too.
But based on this article, there are potential risks, especially that drop in performance if you use it at the wrong time, like between sets.
Yeah, that's a big one to be aware of. And the science itself, well, it's still evolving.
Right. The lack of standard methods and studies, some inconsistent findings, it means we don't have the complete picture yet. There are still questions.
So the conclusion from this source really seems to be foam rolling can be a useful tool, it has benefits, but how and when you use it really matters.
Makes a significant difference. It's not some magic bullet.
No, definitely not. More like a tool that's best used thoughtfully. Primarily before exercise as part of your warm-up routine seems to be the strongest recommendation here.
That feels like a very practical takeaway. It has its place, but you need to be strategic about it, based on what the current science suggests. This deep dive certainly unpacked a lot from just that one article. We've covered the proposed ways it might work, the clearer benefits like ROM and flexibility,
The potential risks, especially that between set performance drop,
the research limitations showing the picture isn't fully complete yet.
and the recommended way to use it?
Yeah.
Before exercise mainly, maybe after for recovery, tailoring frequency.
And crucially, never during rest periods between sets if performance matters right then.
Yeah. And the source's conclusion kind of sums it up nicely. Benefits exist, but how and when are key. The science is still exploring. Use it thoughtfully.
So here's something maybe to chew on, thinking about your own fitness journey.
Okay.
The article mentions those psychological mechanisms like placebo, possibly contributing to the benefits affecting how much pain you feel or how fatigued you perceive yourself to be.
Right, the mind influencing the body.
Exactly. So if our beliefs and expectations can actually influence physical outcomes like that, what does that imply for other tools we use, or routines, or even just the mindset we bring to our training or recovery?
How much of what we experience is pure physiology and how much is shaped by our psyche?
Yeah. How much is physics and how much is psyche? Definitely something to ponder next time you're deciding whether or not to grab that roller.